Hey, what's up, Spartan Nation? Welcome to another episode of the Spartan Nation Podcast. Here with your host, Matt Lonsberry, and my co host, Aiden McCrone. So kind of a special show tonight, something I kind of put together in my head last night and thought that would be a cool way to do a show. And so basically, what's going to happen today is we're going to take a look at Michigan State's roster, take an in-depth look at it, and to make it kind of fun and interactive, what we're going to do is we're going to do like a fantasy draft of Michigan State's roster. We're going to do 25 rounds. So quarterback, wide receivers, running backs, each of us are going to have 5 offensive linemen. Same thing for defense, and we're just kind of going to go through it, talk through the roster that way. Just thought it'd be a fun way to interact as opposed to just kind of going position by position. So we're gonna let some people get in the feed. Hopefully, if like bear with us, stick around uh, for a while but to kind of open things up, Aiden, as we let people kind of come in to the live stream here. I'm kind of throwing this at you out of the blue, but kind of talk about your expectations for Michigan State's defense. You know, this week we've heard from Scotty Hazelton. We heard from Dyron Reynolds, the new defensive line coach. A lot of optimism coming out of East Lansing, it seems like, on that side of the ball. So where's your mindset with like Michigan State's defense right now going into the new year?
Yeah, I mean, talking about the successful Michigan State teams of past, you think of their defense, and that's really the staple of, MSU and what the Mark D'Antonio era was. And that's kind of what, they're trying to get back to is kind of the defense. You want to be balanced in terms of offense and defense, but the defense is trying to, hold their own more after 3 years into this system. This is year four of Scotty Hazelton with kind of the 4-2-5 base defense. Obviously, in years past with more spread teams, it's changed. So, Mike Tressel went to kind of 4-2-5, but not out of base. So just kind of you get the hang of it. You're getting an experienced players with Jacoby Windman, Cal Halliday back. That whole defensive line is just revamped from freshmen to transfers, and that interior D line with Simeon Barrow and Derek Harmon through you know great recruiting and finding these 3-star guys that they've developed. And then you go to the outside with these cornerbacks, and we'll get into those guys later, and the safeties as well. It's just almost a whole new squad from 2021, which was a decent rushing defense, but they really struggled on the back end, and their passing defense was one of the worst in the country. And that's just they've gradually got there. They got better. It didn't seem like it at times last season, but they did get better. And now kind of this season with some third year players and some players with experience, it's time to make that jump where they can rely on the defense, with the one possession left in the fourth quarter, that the defense can get a stop, or they don't give up a field goal going into halftime, and other things like that.
Yeah, no, I think this defense has a chance to get back to being at least what they were in 2021, which was they were pretty stout against the run a couple years ago, and they
Hmm.
were really good in the red zone. You know, when the field got shortened and they couldn't get beat over the top, Michigan State was pretty solid like in those situations. Now, obviously,
Right.
the secondary even in 2021 was probably even worse than last year's, so you don't want that. But I do like some of the young guys that they have back there too. But like when you look at this defensive line, and we're going to get into it as we do this draft. There's a lot of bodies. There's a lot of interior guys that I like, and there's a plethora of edge rushers too that I think that's we've talked about this, but I think that's the strength of this team. That unit, the defensive line, might be the strongest unit on this team. So yeah, I think there's reasons for optimism with the defense. We're not doing like season predictions on this show. Like I've been thinking about those a little bit too. That's going to be either next week
Hmm.
or maybe on game week. Not sure yet. when exactly we're going to do that, but we'll do some like Michigan State expectations for the season, given just like specific predictions and things like that on a different show. But with that, we know we've got some followers in here, so let's not keep them waiting any longer. We're going to go ahead and start our 2023 Michigan State roster draft. Because I'm a gentleman, I'm going to let you have the first pick, Aiden. So,
Oh man,
taking with the first overall pick on Michigan State's the Michigan State football draft.
I'm gonna be honest. This is a little tough, but I will take Jacoby Windman.
Okay.
But I will. Yeah. So I'll put him at linebacker.
Okay.
I think he's kind of the most valuable there. I think he's the big piece. And when he got suspended those last 4 games of the season,
Right.
that really made a huge difference to that defense. And those last 4 games, they really struggled without him, just because they had him at edge rusher at that time because Aaron Brule and Cal Halliday were healthy, but that defensive line was really struggling because they didn't have him. So for that reason, I think he's really valuable. So I'll take him.
I like it. I like the pick. It's a big fish right off the bat, off the board, but that's what the number one pick is all about, right?
Right.
So Aiden's got Jacoby Wimon as his first pick. I've been thinking about this kind of throughout the day. I'm a competitive guy. I'm sure you are too. Like I coach basketball, you coach football, so I'm sure there's a little bit of a competitive thing here. I'm gonna go with a position that I really like that first option, and I'm not sure about the other one. So I'm gonna go Malik Carr, tight end, with my first pick. So I'm gonna gobble up Malik Carr. Again, this is a guy who we've heard good things going back several years, but it hasn't really come together yet. He's got all the physical traits, but got to be a more consistent blocker. Despite what he tweets at me on Twitter when I call that into question with one of my stories, I think it's got to get better. And I will say, Jay Johnson last week when he had media availability, he pointed out Malik Carr, I think unprompted, and talked about how he's become more of a willing run blocker, and maybe there's that. Hey, this is my third year now. I'm looking forward to maybe the draft, and so I've got to put the whole package together. And so I'm excited about Malik Carr. I'm going to take him with my first pick.
All right. Are we going? Do you want to go snake draft or am I up
That's a
next?
good question. I think we'll just go back and forth. I think it'd be a little easier to
Okay,
keep track
that's
of that
fine.
way. So I'll take the slight disadvantage of being the second pick every time. But
All right. So for my second pick, at least, I will take Trey Mosley. I think
okay,
the one staple at that wide receiver position that is a surefire player, and whether he's in a slot or kind of on the outside, he is a valuable weapon for whoever the quarterback may be, whether it's the starter or whoever it is in this fantasy draft. So that's who I'm going with, and a leader of the team as well.
for sure, wide receiver one off the board there. So I mean, you got your defensive leader, and now you've got your uh, your offensive leader. So it makes sense. Drew doesn't agree with our early pick so far, but you can go ahead and play along with us, Drew. So okay, second pick. Oh man, there's a lot of different ways to go here. Um, I'm gonna go. We've heard a lot of good things about the defensive line, like I said, but I think there's a lot of options there. So you already gobbled up a linebacker. I think I'm going to go ahead and grab Cal Halliday right here on as my first linebacker. I need a run stuffer, so I'll go ahead and grab Cal Halliday. I think he's led the team in tackles each of the last 2 years, or maybe tied for the lead a couple years ago. And so I'll go ahead and grab Cal Halliday right here in my second pick.
All right. So I guess we're getting into the third round now. So I'll stay on the offensive side. I'll take JD Duplain as my first offensive lineman, specifically at guard. another guy returning for his sixth year, I believe, or fifth. He's a graduate senior and is really, he's held down that line. And at Big Ten Media Day, just listening to him, he's really setting the expectation for just that line to be better in the run game, and that the passing game they've done well, and they just want to keep that consistency up in the passing game and just really improve the run for this season.
I like it. I like it. I think I'm going to go in a similar location here. Offensive line is one of those where there's more depth at O line than there was last year, but it still is a little bit light. So I better respond here and grab an offensive lineman. I'll go ahead. I'm a little bit nervous about this just because he didn't practice in the first practice of fall camp, but doing a little bit of, I mean, it's just message board stuff, so take it with a grain of salt, but there's optimism. I think that he'll be ready to go by week 1. And so I'm going to go ahead and grab Nick Samak, the center, with my third pick. So I'm going to go ahead and grab Samak.
All right.
And for a lot of the same reasons that you said, like just a guy who's played a lot of football. Him and JD, have been next to each other. We're going to split them up here. But yeah, experienced guy, got to get the trenches right. And so I'm going to grab Samak.
All right. For my fourth pick, let's see. So I already have Winman, Duplain, and Mosley. For my fifth pick, I'll take Nathan Carter.
Okay.
I'll take the first running back off the board. I think from what I've heard, that he's really been doing well at practices just throughout spring and throughout summer so far. He's just kind of a lightning in the bottle guy. And I know Ephraim Reed, the running backs coach, talked about how last year kind of everyone wanted to be Kenneth Walker, and not everyone can be, and
Right.
obviously that showed last year. But I think he has that big play making ability to be, a game changer. And while he may not have the type of production that Walker had, I think he could still, have these big time runs where he goes for, 60 yards after Jalen Berger, if they complement each other after getting like a physical guy. He just kind of is a speedster there. So for that reason, I'll take Nathan Carter.
Yeah, I think we were both a little bit let down's kind of a strong word, but I'm going to go ahead and use it. Let down with what we got out of like Jarek Broussard last year, or what we saw from Jarek Broussard last year in the backfield. I mean, the running game as a whole, I mean, let's be honest, but like I expected Broussard to kind of seize the RB1 spot. I thought he'd actually make a bigger impact than Berger. That wasn't the case. And so Carter's a little bit more of a bigger guy, but still has a lot of the same some of the same traits as a Jarek Broussard, but I think just maybe bigger and can hold up under more hits and contact and things like that. So no, that's a good pick. I'm gonna stick with the offensive line. I'm gonna grab Gino Vandemark as my right guard here. So I'm gonna stick with the big uglies up front, and keep working on that offensive line. So I'm gonna grab him. You've got Nathan Carter. Oh yeah. So yeah, I mean, again, there's not a whole lot you can say about the offensive line. It's just it's one of the more important positions. And so I'll again grabbing a right guard with my fourth, a center and my right guard with my third and fourth pick. So I mean, I guess I maybe wouldn't make it the best NFL GM, but all right, go ahead, Aiden.
So my next pick, I'll take Derek Harmon, the defensive tackle.
Ooh, I like
and
that
I really
one.
think he's gonna be a difference maker on defense this season. And we kind of got a decent amount of what he could be potentially last year. And I think this year he can really make a jump and, potentially be an all conference player. And yeah, he could be a difference maker.
That's like the first. I mean, I like your draft completely so far. I mean, we're early, but like that's the first one that like it hurts me because he was somebody who was high on my board, and I thought
Yeah,
maybe I could go a little bit longer and not have to worry about him coming off that quickly. But I agree. Like, um, Derek Harbin was like I would say the breakout player almost on the defense last year. He was a
definitely.
true either a sophomore or a redshirt freshman or something like that. And Jacob Slade goes down early, and Harmon was just a kind of a revelation there. Just played really well. I think he outplayed Simeon Barrow last year. And so yeah, I like him a lot. That's a good pick. Let's see. I've got Malik Carr at tight end. I got Samac and Vandemark as guards, and then Halliday on defense. Oh man. Hmm. Well, you kind of again, I'm playing catch up a little bit here, but I'm going to go defensive tackle too, and I'm going to go ahead and take Jalen Sammy, who we've heard a bunch about. Uh, this just within the last few weeks, as he arrived this summer. He wasn't part of spring ball, but just a massive human being. That's the way people have described him
Yeah.
out of Michigan State's camp. Is 6'6", 330. Some think that he might be bigger than that, than even what his measurables say. So I'm going to go ahead and grab Jalen Sammy at defensive tackle to plug up the middle. And you kind of forced my hand there a little bit with taking Derek Harmon, so I'm going to respond with Jalen Sammy.
Okay. Yeah. So for my next pick, I think I will also go back to the O line, and I will take Brandon Baldwin
Okay.
for my left tackle.
Okay.
And he got some surprising minutes at the start of last year when Spencer Brown went down, and I really think that he could be a difference maker, and he'll be probably playing on the left side this year.
Yep.
And just a guy who has more experience than the other two tackles so far. I mean, besides Brown, but somebody who came in and played pretty well, and I think he could make a jump this year.
Okay. Yep. I like that pick too. He's another again as a guy who's kind of right now projected as one of Michigan State starters. So I like that pick. Let's see. Let me do a once over here. All right, I think I got it. I'm gonna stay on the defensive side, and I'm gonna grab Jaden Mangum as my free safety. So I'll go
Okay.
secondary here and grab Jaden Mangum. Again, this is a guy who, even as a true freshman last year, came in and played pretty well in spot duty. He unfortunately he had was what I'm assuming was a concussion against Ohio State. Got lit up pretty good. Missed the rest of that game. Missed the following game against Wisconsin. It seems like he played a little bit after that, but not nearly as much as earlier in the year. But I really like this kid. I think just the length, a good football IQ, a guy who I think is going to be a staple in Michigan State secondary for at least this year and next year. Maybe beyond that too, depending on how good he really is. Because if he has stacks 2 good years on here together, he might be a draft candidate. But really like him, so I'm going to go ahead and grab Jaden Mangum here.
All right. So after Mangum, I will go back to the D line, but I'll take an end. I'm gonna go Tunmis Adelaide as one of my defensive ends, the transfer from A&M. I think he is kind of primed. I think he sounds that he's ready to play more than he did at A&M, and I think he could really be a difference. Obviously, he's another large human being along that D line. I think he's listed around 6'5", 280 or 285, and he's playing on the outside. So he's really, a prototype player for Big Ten football. So
Right.
that's who I'm going with.
Yeah, I mean a physical freak, like a guy who's again came into camp 280. and can still get to the sideline. And we saw it in the spring game, like that
Mhm.
it was a drill or something that we saw where he kind of shreds a tackler and beats a running back to the sideline, brings him down for either a no gain or a 1 yard. So you just don't see that kind of athleticism very often. So yeah, definitely a nice pickup for you there. Let's see here.
This is tough
This
because
is tough.
I'm going to be honest. I don't want to be the first one to take a quarterback.
Right. I mean, I kind of feel like with the
Yeah.
quarterbacks, I'm cool with either one that I get,
Right.
whether it be Noah or Caton. So we're kind of sleep on the quarterbacks here.
Yeah.
So I'm not ready to grab a quarterback just
Taking
yet.
one yet.
I feel like there's more competition at other positions that
Right.
are,
Right.
So no, I'm with you there. I'm with you. Yeah. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna double up on safety. I'm gonna take in Malik Spencer at
Okay.
strong safety. So
Okay.
I'm really gonna focus in on the secondary here, and I'm gonna take Malik Spencer
All right.
again. So Malik is a guy who I think played mostly on just special teams last year. Well, he was hurt for the first 7 or unavailable for the first 7 games due to injury. Got a little bit, I think, at special teams last year, but again, just one of those guys who we've heard a lot of good things about. Coming out of fall or even going back to spring, and just the hype around him and how he's expected to maybe be a starter alongside Mangum in that secondary. So again, safety is one of those spots where I think Michigan State might be a little bit lighter. So I'm going to go ahead and grab both of them and hope that the rest of the defense can hold up. So.
All right. Well, I'm going back to offense. I think I'm going to take another weapon. I'm going to go. This is going to be a little bit of a surprise, but I'm going to go Montori Foster
Okay.
for a receiver. I think from what everyone's been talking about him, he's one of the older guys that in a somewhat younger group outside of Mosley. It's kind of Mosley, Foster, Fitzpatrick, and then a bunch of younger players. But from by all accounts, Montori Foster has really kind of stepped up and really wants that starting job badly. I know Mosley talked about at the media day about how Courtney Hawkins saying everyone's job's up for grabs, and kind of there's so many passes that guys can get, and catches that they can have, and they just got to win them. And I think Foster could be a potential winner coming in the fall.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean, again, just a couple of veteran wide receivers that you've stacked over there. So I like the pick. I'm going to go back to offensive line. I think I'm going to grab Keyshawn Blackstock on the offensive line. That's going to be my left tackle. Kind of I don't want to say a shot in the dark because he was, I think, the number 1 JUCO offensive lineman this year, or at least interior offense or tackle or something like that. So, but he's going to compete for one of the starting tackle jobs. You already grabbed Baldwin, who I really liked. And so again, sticking with the trenches, making sure things are okay up front. So I'm going to grab him as my left tackle. So let's do a quick little recap. So for Aiden, he's got Nathan Carter, Trey Mosley, Montori Foster, Brandon Baldwin, JD Duplain. That's his offense so far. Defensively, he's got Tunmise Adelaide, Derek Harmon, and Jacoby Windman. For myself, I've got on offense Malik Carr, and then just 3 offensive linemen: Keyshawn Blackstock, Nick Samak, and Gino Vandemark. Defensively, I got Jalen Sammy, Cal Halliday, Jane Mangum, and Malik Spencer.
And just for the listeners, this is everyone's gonna have a full offense and a full both of us will have a full offense and a full defense. So
we're going.
If you're saying that's a player's dropping, if you think a player's dropping, they will be drafted most likely.
Right. And we're even going to do kickers and punters too,
Yeah.
but that will probably be pushed down way down the list there because we don't. To be honest, I don't know a whole lot about Michigan State's punting or kicking situation other than what we know about the transfers that they brought in. So
Mhm.
not going to be a huge emphasis on special teams in the draft, unfortunately. All right, so I think it's your turn, Aiden.
Okay. So my next pick, I will probably go back to the defensive line. I'm gonna go Simeon Barrows. So I will
Mm,
have another, experienced guy in the interior, and then with my team, I would have him complimenting Derek Harmon, which I could definitely see in the future. And obviously, you taking Jalen Sammy, I think those three are really going to rotate a lot. And there might be one or two other defensive tackles in that rotation, but I think it's really going to be those three getting the most production and the most snaps.
gotcha. Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think those three are kind of going to emerge as the guys, but then you look behind them and Jarrett Jackson, a transfer from Florida State, Dre Butler, a transfer from Liberty, Maverick Hansen played a lot last year, and so that's six deep right there that Michigan State can just rotate guys
Mhm.
who have. I mean, I know Maverick played a lot last year. I'm to be honest, I'm not sure how much Jarrett Jackson or Dre Butler played. I feel like Butler played quite a bit, but that's not. I didn't research that. So, but just getting the point of this is kind of to talk about the depth and whatnot of Michigan State's roster. Defensive tackle, they've got a good rotation of dudes there.
Mhm.
And I think that's reflected just in, again, the three guys that came off the board this early for us. So, all right. So let me think here. I think. Do I want to grab my second? It's tough because I don't know
It
where you're
is.
gonna. I don't know where you're gonna go next, which is kind of the whole idea of a
Yeah,
draft. So,
right.
um, I think I will go. I'm gonna grab Chris Bogle, defensive end.
Okay.
He's a guy who came in with a lot of hype last year, transferred from Florida, but it got hurt pretty early and didn't make much of a contribution last year. But Dyron Reynolds talked about him earlier this week as being almost back to 100% in a full go. And I mean, just talk about physical attributes, like a former highly touted recruit from goes to Florida, doesn't really work out there, but finds a new home at Michigan State. I like the measurables, I like the athleticism. I need that on the edge, and so I'm going to go ahead and go Chris Bogle here. I do like Zion Young, Drew. I've seen your comments. I do like Zion Young, but I just feel like there's a couple other guys maybe who I just like. I mean, Tunmi's Adedele is a physical freak. I feel like Chris Bogle, a different type of guy than Tunmise, but still another athletic dude. So that's where I'm going to go with.
All right. Yeah. So I'm gonna go back to the offensive line. I know some other people in the comments are saying his name, but I'm gonna take Spencer Brown
Okay.
at to be my other tackle. So I'll have Brandon Baldwin on the left and then Spencer Brown on the right. And another guy who's really gotten game experience. And I think when we've talked about so far about every single player that's been drafted that we've drafted, they have a decent amount of playing experience, not only just in college, like whether they're transfer or not, but specifically on this team. And he's a guy who I think was in the 2019 recruiting class as well. So he's another kind of graduate senior guy who has waited for his chance and stayed through the program after the coaching switch and everything, and could make an impact for them. So yeah.
Yeah. No. I think you've got the two guys who are at this point as probably projected to be the starting tackles. You got them both right now. I do like
Hmm.
some of the other. I mean, Keyshawn Blackstock, I think
Yeah,
you can throw into
there's
that too. So I think that's
right.
like those three guys. And so, um, man, let's see here. I think I'm going to go grab. I'm going to go back to the secondary. All right. I'm going to go back to the secondary, and I'm going to grab. I'll grab Charles Brantley
Okay.
as my first cornerback.
All right.
Again, a guy who I I think he was probably been. He's a guy who brings the lumber when he hits. I mean, Michigan State has in the secondary as a whole has struggled in pass coverage. So if I
Mhm.
come out and say I think he was their best pass coverage, that's not saying a whole lot. So I'm not saying he's a world beater in pass coverage, but I do think he's one of Michigan State's better options back there. I like the way that he uh, just the way he comes up and helps and can support in the run game, just the physicality he brings. He had the big interception against Michigan. A guy who took a dipped a toe in the transfer portal when at the same time that Peyton Thorne and Keon departed, and then Michigan State's able to bring him back in. I think that was a big win. I'm going to go with Charles Brantley here.
All right. Well, I'm gonna counter that, so I'm gonna take a corner as well. I'm gonna go Caleb Coley, who is
Okay.
another kind of rising player that has been talked about a lot throughout, the spring and kind of the summer. So, another guy like that, I think he is really in contention for that other starting job at corner. I mean, if they play three corners, I would expect him to be in. But whoever the first two guys are, I think he's really competing for that starting job. And depending on this season, he could be the best one. Depending on how big of a jump he took this off season.
Yeah, I like the pick. He's one of those young guys who you wonder how quickly he can get acclimated and be ready to go. Just
Right.
because, again, not to beat a dead horse, but Michigan State has struggled so much in pass coverage, and so you get some of this new young talent in. And this goes back even before Mel Tucker arrived. I think Michigan State's secondary had started to decline even in the latter years of Mark D'Antonio, and so I think that's part of the reason why we're going into year 4 and we still have questions about Michigan State secondary, is just because it's a position that really needed to be addressed. I like the guys that Mel Tucker has brought in over the years. It's just how quickly can those guys be ready to go. So um, I've put off some of the skill positions on offense here. So I think I'm going to grab a wide receiver here. I just got to decide which one I want. I think I'm going to grab Tyrell Henry for my first
Okay.
wide receiver.
Yeah.
He's a guy who can also, kick returner, punt returner. Not that we're doing that today, but like if you can plug him in back there too. And so a speed guy, a guy who can play the slot. I think he can probably play a little bit outside too, but kind of projects as that slot guy. And so I'm gonna go Tyrell Henry and grab a skill position guy.
All right. This is a tough spot for me right now. I'm kind of thinking about where my next move should be, whether it should be offense or defense. And I'm gonna be honest, this is a tough one, but I think I'm gonna round out my wide receiver room right now,
Wow.
and I'm
I'm
gonna
glad I grabbed
take
Henry then.
I'm gonna take Alante Brown,
Mm,
to a new transfer in from Nebraska. So with my the current trio of receivers that I picked, I have Trey Mosley, Montori Foster, and Alante Brown. So three guys who have really, are older and a little more experienced. And I think, Alante Brown, that Trey Mosley talked about how he was committed to MSU at one point. and then ended up going to Nebraska. And I think him coming back, and then obviously with Keon Coleman leaving, I think he's some big time insurance. And what originally seemed to be was kind of, yeah, like that insurance. I think his talent will be hard to keep off the field. So for that reason, I'll go.
I like your wide receiver group. Again, Trey Mosley, Montori Foster, Alante Brown, three guys who are experienced guys. I mean, Alante, I'm not sure what year he is, but I know he played quite a bit for Nebraska last
Yeah.
year. Obviously, Mosley's been a guy with a ton of experience. Montori Foster has dealt with some. Is it him who's dealt with injuries, or is it Christian Fitzpatrick who's dealt with injuries?
Christian Fitzpatrick. Well, Montori Foster. I think both, but
Okay,
yeah,
all
but
right.
more so Montori Foster too.
Okay, but I was a little surprised. I don't remember what it was a couple weeks ago. Maybe Michigan State's first practice, and they invited some players in to talk to the media too, and he was one of the guys, and that was kind of like
Mhm.
it kind of made me raise my eyebrows a little bit. It's like, okay, it's interesting that he would be one of the guys that was selected to talk to the media. So I think that might be a little telling. We're not going to put too much into it, but um, yeah, I like the pick. All right, so I'm going to go back to the defensive line. I just got to figure out who I want to grab. Um, yeah, I'm going to go an end. Man, there's a
Okay.
few different places you could go here because you got
Right.
experience and then you've got young talent. um, that's interesting. I'm gonna go Zion Young here. Zion Young's gonna be my second defensive end. Um, again, I like the experience that he got. He was kind of thrown to the fire last year just because Michigan State had so many injuries on the edge and then the suspensions, and so it was trial by fire last year. And so I like that experience that he's got. Now he's got another year in the system, another year of strength and conditioning. I was tempted to go buy Job here just because he's a top 60 I think recruit coming out of high school. Diamond Reynolds again this week talked about how he's already a good pass rusher, like he just is a natural at that. The reason why I'm going to go Young instead of buy Job is because Reynolds did say that there's the run uh, defense, run defense. He's got to get better against the run. He's probably a slighter framed coming out of high school and things like that. So I'm going to go Zion over by Job here as my second defensive end. So let's do a quick recap again, just for anybody who
All right. Yeah.
has joined late. So offensively, my team first. I got Tyrell Henry, Malik Carr, Keyshawn Blackstock, Nick Samak, and Geno Vandemark. And then defensively, Chris Bogle, Zion Young, Jalen Sammy, Cal Halliday, Charles Brantley, Jaden Mangum, Malik Spencer. Aiden on offense has Nathan Carter, Trey Mosley, Alante Brown, Montori Foster, Brandon Baldwin, and J.D. Duplain, and Spencer Brown. Defensively, he's got Tamis Adedele, Derek Harmon, Simeon Barrow, Jacoby Winman, and Caleb Coley. Dude, your front seven, I mean, you only got four guys so far, but your front seven is already shaping up to be nasty.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah. And I think my next pick is gonna be another front seven play.
Okay.
Yeah. So so my next pick, I'm gonna take Aaron Brule.
Okay.
I've seen it in the comments, but I do believe I'm not just taking him because of the comments to take him. I'm actually
Sure.
taking him because I do think he is a quality player. And in an article that I already wrote but isn't out yet, I did talk about how how dynamic Jacoby Windman is, and the experience that Aaron Brule has. I think that does a lot for the defense, and you can move Windman to end if you need to, and you can have Brule there, and that trust is really there. So yeah.
I got you. Um, yeah, I like the dude. Again, your front seven is pretty loaded. How do you think this is kind of a just out of nowhere, but like right now you've got Jacoby Windman and Aaron Boulay. We know Michigan State's linebackers have struggled in pass coverage a little bit. How do you see those two guys Obviously, like Windman, excellent against the run. Is a guy who, if he blitzes, he can get to the pass to the quarterback, because he did that a lot last year. Forced fumbles like crazy last year. But how do you see those two, and maybe in those, maybe passing downs, covering the middle there?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something I would be shocked if they didn't emphasize that this off season. But I think Windman has some really good football instincts. I think when you watch him, he just has a nose for the ball. I know he had a big interception at the
Right.
beginning of the Wisconsin game, and just in general, he got better over time, and then obviously the suspension. But Brule is another guy who he's fast and he's quick to close down. Everyone talks about those sideline to sideline linebackers are now the kind of prototypical modern day, linebackers that you want. And I think he could definitely be that for them this season as well.
Gotcha. I gotcha. All right, let's see here. I got like two very, very different directions that I'm kind of thinking about here. Um, I think I'm gonna go. Hmm, I'm gonna go back to the secondary, and I'm gonna grab Dylan Tatum, but I'm gonna put him as my nickel back instead of the second corner. I'm gonna
Okay.
put him at nickel. So I got Dylan
Okay.
Tatum as my nickel. Again,
Interesting.
a guy who played on a lot of different positions last year. I think he started at, I want to say he started at safety, and then maybe played a little bit of corner later in the year. And I think he got some reps at nickel too. So, played a lot of different places. I like his athleticism, former 4-star kid, guy who played on both sides of both sides of the ball at West Bloomfield. I think I like how my secondary has shaped up so far, and so I'm going to keep that going and go with Dylan Tatum back there.
All right. This, I am short safeties and nickelback, so I will go safeties now. I'm gonna draft. I'll take a Morion Smith, who is
Okay.
another transfer, a guy from Cincinnati who went to River Rouge High School. So he's from Michigan, and he got some playing time at the end of last year. So he has gotten a little bit of college experience, but obviously the AAC compared to Big Ten is definitely a jump. But I think
Sure.
he could produce a little bit of quality. At the least, I think he's a solid special teams player, but definitely a backup to that one of those safety roles. And my guess would be that free safety role to Jaden Mangum.
Okay. Do you see him as more of a strong safety or a free safety?
I would say it's hard, but I would say free safety.
Okay.
And yeah.
So you address some secondary need. Um. Okay, I'm gonna go back to the offensive line here. I'm debating between two guys for my left guard. Let's see. I'm gonna look at the old roster here real quick, and that'll help me make my decision. I got that pulled up. Um, the guys I'm debating between are Dallas Fincher and Kevin Wigginton. Wigginton's a redshirt sophomore. Fincher's a redshirt junior, so a little more experience there. Another year in the system, but Wigginton's a bigger guy though. I think I'm going to go Kevin Wigginton as my left guard to help shore
Okay.
up that offensive line. That'll just leave me with my right tackle that I have to address. But I'm going to wrap up my interior offensive line by grabbing Wigginton.
All right. Um. Okay. So I'm gonna stay on the defensive side again. I'm gonna
Okay.
go defensive end. but I'm going to go Ken Talley here.
All right.
So a transfer from Penn State. He played with, or he didn't play, but he was around MSU's team pretty much all of last
Right.
season, and
Yep.
then he was eligible to practice with them in January and has been with them since. So I think he's a guy to really look out for, another former four-star recruit that transfers in. So yeah, again, that front seven just kind of, there's a lot of depth there, and I mean
Yeah.
that's the whole reason we're doing this to begin with. But
Sure.
I mean, just talking about this out loud, it really just shows how much depth they have.
Right. I mean, it's one of those things where that's part of the reason why I attacked the secondary so kind of
Hmm.
viscerally is because I feel like there's not as quite as much depth back there. But yeah, the front seven, there's a lot of options, a lot of combinations of guys that I think will work. Um, so no, I get the strategy. It's fun. Here we are. We're in the, let's see, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 picks you've made so far. I think I've made 14 going on 15, and still both
Yeah.
of the quarterbacks are still out there. But again, we addressed that earlier. Um,
Mm.
I think we both feel good about whoever ends up being the starter this year, or at least that
Right.
Noah and Caton are on pretty equal footing. So we're kind of content with whatever happens there. We'll see when one of us pulls the trigger on maybe a guy who we like better than the other. So let's see here. I'm gonna go. I've ignored the running back position, but let me see. I think I have a chance here. I mean, I don't want to say to cripple your efforts in the secondary, but I feel like again I'm going to press my advantage there and take and fill that last spot at cornerback. I just got to decide which one I'm going to choose.
Okay.
Uh, I think I'm going to go with a guy who I think missed quite a bit last year. I'm going to go Marquis Lowry as my second corner.
Okay.
So my secondary is completed.
Yeah.
And to recap for people, I got Dylan Tatum playing nickel, Charles Brantley and Marquis Lowry at corner, and then Jaden Mangum and Malik Spencer at safety.
Yeah.
So my secondary is done.
All right. All right. So with that, I'm going to go back to the offensive line,
Okay.
and I will take Dallas Fincher as my center. Uh, so another guy who has, stayed with the program. He was the class of 2020, and I mean, there's a lot of good talk about him over this past over the summer, and obviously with Samac kind of in and out of practice from what we've heard. He's been a confident backup where he's trusted that he can be a backup and really add to that depth. And I don't think anyone believes that Samac won't play week one, because I do believe that he will be there. He'll be playing week one, but Fincher's a guy that can be a trusted backup.
Right. I like the pick. Like I said, I was kind of tempted to take him as my other guard, but I liked
Mhm.
Wigginson's size a little bit more. Give me 1 second here. Sorry, I had to let my dog out of the room real quick. He was starting to whine. I didn't want that to get picked up in the audio feed here. So,
That's fine.
okay. So, yeah, let's see. A few different options here. I guess I'm gonna go running back here, and I'm gonna take Jalen Berger as my starting running back. Again, a guy who got a lot of rep last year. He was really good in limited time at Wisconsin too. I think he got better as the season progressed last year. Maybe tried to do a little bit too much early in the year, developing that chemistry with the offensive line. But I'm going to go ahead and grab Jalen Berger.
All right. Um, I will also stay on the offensive side, and I will take for my tight end. I will take Tyneil Hopper, who is the transfer from Boise State. I think he's been, from again, this is all from what we've heard and kind of what's been reported by players and coaches is that he's come in and he's kind of made a name for himself in that room, which we've talked about the tight end room before, and there's a lot of guys. There's I think like 7 scholarship players at tight end, so he transferred in this off season, and he's looking to make a statement and kind of who is going to be Malik Carr's backup, or if they go to a 2 tight end kind of scheme, who can play alongside Malik Carr. So yeah.
Gotcha. Hey, I'm gonna pull up this question just and let you explain your reasoning behind it. But Drew asked, like, why Tally over by Job a few picks ago? What went into that decision?
I don't know. I didn't know this was a post game like interview, but yeah. But I would say for Ken Tally, just the fact that he's been around. I think being in there's a lot of value of being in a college level, like Division 1 level weight room for a whole off season, and then
Yeah.
having that extra practice, and then just being around the team in general, I think gives a little bit more uh edge to him for now. Obviously, with Deron Reynolds being the new D line coach, this is kind of all stipulation at the same time. From it's what we've what we've heard and what's been reported, but at the same time, a lot of this is stipulation of we don't know who they like better than the other, but they have had they've said rave reviews about both of those players.
Gotcha. Yep. Just wanted to again address that question that we got from Drew.
Yeah.
Okay. For my next pick, this might come as a surprise, but I like this guy's skill set, and I think he brings something unique to the table. And so for my second running back, I'm going to grab Jalen Barberin, the true freshman out of California. He ran a 10.37 according to 24/7 Sports in the 100-meter dash. So just a burner. He was talked about. Jay Johnson talked about him. Ephraim Reed, obviously, being his position coach, talked about Jalen Barberin. I just like the uniqueness of him, like a guy who you can swing out to the flat, dump it to, and in space and let go make a play. It was tough because you had the hammer and Jaron Mangum for those short yardage situations, but I like Berger enough in those situations. And Ephraim Reed sent a 10-2 guy. He maybe he is a 10-2 guy. I just know that's what was on 24/7 Sports was 10.37 in the 100-meter. So yeah, just a burner. I like Berger in those short yardage situations enough to go ahead and take a flyer out on the young freshman. So I'm going to take Jalen Barberin.
Ooh, this is tough. I think I you know what? I hate to be that guy, but I'm gonna take an easy route right now. I'm gonna draft special teams, and
Okay.
I'm gonna take Jonathan Kim for my place kicker. And I know there's some people who are regulars on who are regular listeners on this show that ask about
Yeah.
kickers, and Jonathan Kim is a transfer from North Carolina, so he came in this summer and is really kind of expected to be that guy. And what was a little bit shaky, or not just a little bit, it was shaky last year in the kicking game, but he's coming in to clear that up.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering which one of us would pull the trigger on a special teams guy first, and so
Right,
I understand the pick. I'm gonna counter, but I'm gonna go punter.
right.
I'm gonna grab Michael O'Shaughnessy. He was a transfer from somewhere. I can't remember where off the top of my head, but he's a guy who's been a college punter for a few years now, and so I just the experience that he brings. I think Ryan Eckley is the other one kind of competing for that starting job, and he's a younger guy, and so I'm going to go ahead and grab Michael O'Shaughnessy as my punter. And
Um,
yeah, as you mentioned, special teams is kind of, I mean, as at least last year, Michigan State had Bryce Behringer, and so you knew you had a guy who was going to flip the field. I don't know if you saw his punt for the New England Patriots in the
yeah,
preseason game, but we've seen that a few times, haven't we, Aiden? Where he just
right,
completely
right.
flips the field, and you can see why Bill Belichick, went and grabbed a punter is because he was the best punter available probably in the last maybe even 3 or 4 drafts. I don't know, but
Mhm.
so that's my reasoning for O'Shaughnessy is just a guy who's been in around college football a little bit. So your pick.
All right, I'm gonna go running back, and I'm gonna go Jaron Mangum.
Okay.
So you'll have Jaden. I'll have Jaron. Um,
Yep.
I think he could be a good asset for the Spartans this year specifically in the red zone. I think he's the most physical runner in that running back group, and he's a transfer from USF, and he also played at Colorado and was recruited by Mel Tucker originally to go play at Colorado. And you know, I he was injured last season, but the season before in 2021, he was really a red zone specialist kind of guy that came in and was just really physical between the tackles, and he found the end zone a lot. And I could definitely see that in trying to revamp this running game with you know Nathan Carter, Jalen Berger, uh, Mangum, and then potentially Jalen Barberin. That you got some guys there that could really be physical and have a lot of different looks for defenses.
I got you. Yep. All right. I think for the most part, the strategy portion of this has kind of played itself out because we've each got different holes at positions that the other guys filled. So we are approaching an hour here. So let's try to pick up the pace just a little bit here
Yeah,
and
I
give
think we
this.
got 6 picks left.
Okay.
So
So I'm just gonna start filling holes here. Linebacker, I'm gonna go Jordan Hall, the true freshman out of IMG Academy. I think this dude could see the field as early as this season. I think he'll certainly be on the field in special teams this year, but I really like just his potential, his athleticism. So I'm gonna fill my second linebacker spot with Jordan Hall, and I feel good about him and Cal Halliday as my two linebackers there.
mhm. I'm gonna go safety. I'm gonna go Malcolm Jones, who
Okay.
was kind of a late addition to that class in 22, but he's come along as well. I think there are a lot of good things that people have heard about him. He's another guy from Georgia, if I'm not mistaken. So, that secondary is a lot of players from Georgia and Florida. I know Malik Spencer is a big time player from Georgia. So adding that up, I know the safety group is really, really young. And that's definitely there's definitely gonna be some growing pains, but also at the same time there could be a lot of upside and some good learning experiences.
I got you. Yep. I like. He's the guy who, to your point, haven't heard a whole lot about. Other than
Mhm.
I just think if you look at the measurables, I just like his measurables a lot, and he just
Yeah.
projects as a guy who I think is going to be a good safety in the near future. So no, I like the pick a lot. Um, I'm gonna round out. See, it's tough because I don't know who I'm going to take there, so I'll choose a different position. You know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going quarterback.
Okay.
I'm going to make my decision on quarterback, and I choose Sam Leavitt. No, I'm kidding. I'm
Ooh.
going to go ahead and take Noah Kim, the guy who we've seen a little bit from. I think you're probably happy with that because I think deep down you wanted Caden Hauser, but I think Noah Kim is. I like what I've seen out of what we saw out of him last year in spot duty was obviously really good.
Mhm.
We'll see how that translates to. I mean, he's not gonna complete 73% of his throws or what. Maybe he will, but I doubt it. Um, he's gonna have one of those games where that tests his metal a little bit. But I like when you hear him talk in press conferences and things like that. He's very stoic. He's very mature. I like that about him. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab Noah Kim as my QB right here in whatever round that we're in. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, hey, I think it's a good pick either way. I think,
yeah,
I mean, the competition is obviously clear, and that they're not denying it. I don't think Hauser or Kim are really denying the competition, and it
right.
seems very healthy. So again, they said it themselves. They said, "May the best man win," and yeah. So for that, I guess for that reason, I'll draft Caden Hauser
Okay.
as my quarterback, and I guess there's not really much more to be said that hasn't been said already.
All right. So we each have an offensive lineman to draft. I've got a defensive tackle, and you've got to address your secondary a little bit more. But
Yeah, yeah.
um, I'll go ahead and round out my offensive line though, and I'm going to take Ethan Boyd as my right tackle. Um, I really do. I feel pretty good about Michigan State at the tackle spots. Keyshawn Blackstock. I think Ethan
Definitely.
Boyd's a good player. And then Spencer Brown's played a lot, and Brandon Baldwin. Like I think Michigan State has four guys who they would feel pretty comfortable about at tackle, and so I'll round out my offensive line with him, Ethan Boyd. So you go
Mhm.
ahead.
Um, I will go. I will also round out my offensive line. I will go Christian Phillips,
Okay.
who I think I think his nickname's Big Dooley, and I remember at there was an open practice that I went to last season, and he is a large human being.
Okay.
So, and he was a freshman last year, so he's a sophomore, and he came in as a recruit that was he was a 3-star, but they said he was kind of raw, and they're just kind of trying to mold him into being an offensive line, just developing kind of his skills and his vision and what he can be at the guard position, because he's a large human. So they're trying to utilize him, and that really adds to their depth as well if he is good enough to play.
Um, I got to draft some wide receivers. I completely forgot about my wide receivers. Yeah, I'll take Antonio Gates Jr. as my second wide out. I think we saw him in the spring game. Obviously, the heritage, being the son of a Hall of Fame guy, a guy who played in the NFL for a long time. I like again the measurables, just a big target, and that's there's not much else like you said that needs to be said about Antonio Gates, just like him as a prospect. So
Mhm. All right. This is going to be tough, but I think for my other cornerback spot, because I have a strategy for this, but
okay,
my second cornerback, I'm going to draft Justin White, who
okay,
I really kind of liked watching him in the spring and last season. I think he's another kind of similar to Brantley, where he's a physical kind of downhill guy. I think he will play more nickelback in the season, but I still need to draft a nickel. So for
yeah,
that reason, I'm going to take him because he has also played on the corner before.
okay. I'll round up my wide receivers. I'll take Jerron Glover, the third of that trio of second year guys. So I've got Tyrell Henry, Antonio Gates, Jerron Glover. You know what's ironic is that I ended up with the
Right.
sophomore receivers, and I took Kim. That might have been a mistake
Mhm.
on my part. I might
Oh,
have made a mistake there and should have taken the guy who's probably thrown to those guys more often. So I might have blundered there. But I got the trio of sophomores with Noah Kim as my wide receivers. So Jerron Glover's my pick.
yeah. Um, so I'll finish with a nickelback, and I will take Angelo Gross,
Okay.
who is back for one more season as well. This is his senior year. You know, a guy who got a lot of experience both at safety, and then they moved him to nickel as well. They wanted a little bit more speed and just kind of, he's a player that MSU is going to rely on this season and is looking for him to make, a senior statement kind of guy to make a big jump and really help that pass defense.
All right, I'm going to round out my defensive line with my second tackle. There's we talked about this earlier, but there's a few different directions I can go here. Maverick
Hmm.
Hansen, Dre Butler, Jarrett Jackson. I'm going to go ahead and take Jarrett Jackson just because I think maybe his upside's a little bit higher than like a Maverick Hansen. And so I'll take him as my second tackle.
Okay.
So I think you've got punter, and is that
Yeah.
it?
Yeah. I only have punter and you only have kicker.
Okay, all right. This should be pretty easy.
So yeah, so I'll take Ryan Eckley as my punter. And yeah, I guess we already talked about that a little bit too. So
Yeah, yeah, and I'll take Steven Rusnick as my kicker. And we're going to be going for it on fourth down a lot this year. I'm just saying. I probably shouldn't say that. Like, hopefully Steven Rusnick or none of his family members are watching
oh
our
gee.
podcast here. No offense, but we saw what happened last year, and it was not pretty. So a lot of fourth down attempts for my team this year. All right, so let's now that it's completed, those of you who are still listening, we appreciate you sticking with us well over an hour here. But I'm going to name our whole rosters here, both sides. You guys pay attention, and in the comment sections, tell us who we missed on, who are guys that aren't listed, who
Yeah.
you think got our snubs practically. So let's start with my offense. I've got Noah Kim at quarterback, Jalen Berger and Jalen Barberin at running back, Tyrell Henry, Antonio Gates Jr., and Jerron Glover at wide receiver. Malik Carr is my tight end. Offensive line from left tackle to right tackle, Keyshawn Blackstock, Kevin Wigginton, Nick Samac, Gino Vandemark, and Ethan Boyd. That's my offensive line. For Aiden's offense, he's got Caden Hauser at quarterback, Nathan Carter and Jaron Mangum at running back, the two transfers this offseason. Wide receiver, he's got Trey Mosley, Montori Foster, and Alante Brown. His tight end is Tyneal Hopper. And then offensive line, left tackle to right tackle, he goes Brandon Baldwin, JD Duplain, Dallas Fincher, Christian Phillips, Spencer Brown. So let's talk offense real quick here. And again, you guys fill in the comments offensively. Who did we miss? Who are we sleeping on with our picks? You know what's crazy, Aiden, is if we tried to do this last year, we didn't have a pod last year going into the season, but if we had tried to do this last year, we would have been hard pressed to come up with just 10 names for offensive linemen, like between the two of
Right.
us. It would have been,
Right.
you would have gotten thin real quick. I do think like there's a few guys here who haven't proven themselves, but again, just looking at it, I think you can see what Coach Kaplovich is talking about, what Mel Tucker's talking about when he talks about the added depth in the trenches. I think it's evident here in the fact that um, I think I think both of our offensive lines we would feel at least somewhat good about going into a season with, and that's just something that we couldn't do last year.
Yeah, definitely. I think, yeah, that spring practice when they walked out with, seven offensive linemen, I was a little shocked by that. I don't think I've ever seen that before. And then, this spring, I think there was 17 offensive linemen. I think they had like 10 more guys. So but it was something around there. But yeah, that's really important. That tight end room, just really figuring that out. There are a ton of tight ends on this team that
Yeah.
could, have the potential to play in different spots. Obviously, that wide receiver room is, you know, it's deep. It's kind of, figuring out who is, after Mosley, kind of figuring out that 2 through 5 spot. But there are, you know, 6 or 7 guys in that 2 through 5 spot that are really competing.
Yeah, I like the thing that I think stands out the most to me just looking at our two offenses is I think your offense has a big edge at wide receiver just because of the experience. Like we know what we're going to get out of Trey Mosley.
Mm-hmm.
Alante Brown's done it at Nebraska for, what he did last year. Montori Foster is a guy who's dealt with injury, but he's a veteran. And so I do think you have an edge there, even though I do like those trios of sophomores. We've talked about them and excited to see them come up, but there's
Mm-hmm.
just no proven commodities there in my wide receiver room. I supplement that a little bit with Malik Carr at tight end. But yeah, we might have to run the ball over at my end, which I kind of went on a limb with Jalen Barberin, but again, just liked his unique skill set. Jalen Berger's a guy who's going to be like my every down back type thing. It seems like the consensus in the comment section is they like your offense better than mine. So let's move on to the defense. I'll start with my defense and then we'll go to Aiden's. Defensive end, I got Chris Bogle and Zion Young on the edges. Defensive tackle, Jalen Sammy and Jarrett Jackson. My linebackers are Cal Halliday and Jordan Hall. And then I really like my secondary. I'm proud of my secondary. I ended up with Dylan Tatum at nickel, Charles Brantley and Marquis Lowry at corner, Jaden Mangum and Malik Spencer at safety. For Aiden, his front seven is loaded. He's got Tunmise Adedele at defensive end with Ken Talley, Derek Harmon, Simeon Barrow at defensive tackle. His linebackers are Jacoby Windman and Aaron Boulay. His secondary, Angelo Gross at nickel, Caleb Coley and Justin White at corner, Amorian Smith and Malcolm Jones at safety. So again, guys in the audience, who did we miss on? I saw Keys to Wisdom says Maverick Hansen was a snub.
Yeah.
He likes Hansen. I debated him between him and Jarrett Jackson. I think maybe a little bit more upside for Jackson, so that's why I went with him.
Yeah, I think
Um,
I think there are a lot more snubs on defense just in general. I
yeah,
think the defense, that defensive line, not only Maverick Hansen, you have Van Summeren, who is a blue chip recruit. You have the linebackers, you have Ma Ote Ote, and we haven't even mentioned Darius Snow, who
right.
he's injured. He's injured right now, and kind of there's no set date on his return, but I would assume that he return, soon because he got his injury in week 1 of last season. So I would, assume it'd be close to a year recovery, and he'd be back, at least practicing somewhat, soon, whether it is end of August or heading into September, that he could maybe get some maybe like the last half of the season in.
Yeah, no, and we talked about like maybe some advantages that different like where one of us has an advantage. I like my secondary better than yours. I'll just throw that
That
out there
no,
right now.
that's fair. That's fair.
But I do think you're okay at safety with Amarian Smith and Malcolm Jones. I think
Mm,
that's okay back there. Offensive line is interesting to me just because you've got the two projected tackles who are at least projected to start. But again, I like Keyshawn Blackstock as a potential option as a starter too. Ethan Boyd, I don't think is that far back of a step back. I've
mhm.
got the starting center in Samac, assuming he's going to be ready to go. Vandemark at guard. So I think we kind of split the starters a little bit there. And again, just not to reiterate things, but I like the depth at offensive line. Um, yeah, Snow. I'm gonna let's talk about Snow just briefly here to kind of maybe wrap things up. We got a little bit of an update from Scotty Hazelton. Just he told us that he was going through the Snow's going through drills with the team. Based on what I heard, like what he Scotty Hazelton said, and the tone that he provided with him, I don't think that Snow is. I don't think he's going through contact right now. I don't think like they do thud in practice right now. I'm not sure that um, that Darius is. We just lost Aiden, so we'll see if we can get him back. But I'm not sure that Darius is going through contact right now. Um, and I don't know when again that timetable is as far as him getting back. My best assumption would be welcome back.
Oh,
Uh, my assumption is that even if I don't think Snow is going to be ready for the start of the year, I think that's pretty clear based on. Yeah, Aiden took his team and left. That's that's right. He's like, I like my team. I'm going to go coach
yeah.
them up and get ready to meet Matt's
Oh boy.
team next Saturday. So, but no, I don't think Snow is going to be ready at the start of the year. It doesn't sound like it based on what we heard from Mel Tucker
Mhm.
and Scotty Hazelton. Even if he does get um, I don't want to speculate too much because we don't really have a whole lot of inside knowledge, and that's because it's been very kept close to the chest. But even if he was 90% healthy, I don't think Michigan State should or would play him in those first two games. I don't think there's any reason to play him against Central Michigan or Richmond. If he's
Mhm.
ready to go by Washington to be at least in the rotation, I think that would be great. But I'm not sure if that's reality at this point, just because again, sounds like he's going through drills and practice and things like that. But I don't think he's. I'm sure he's not tackling. And I don't even know how much contact he is doing in practice right now either, just because just how serious that injury was. Um, so at this point, I think you kind of got to prepare for life without Darius, even though I think he would probably be back at some point this year. But you got to go ahead with the mindset that he's not going to be available. But as we pointed out here at linebacker, I like the depth they got in Cal Halliday, Jacoby Windman, Aaron Goulet, Jordan Hall. I'm really excited about to see him out there. Even beyond those four guys, we didn't get Gaoteote. He wasn't
Right.
drafted by us. He's probably maybe one of those guys you can look at as potentially a snub.
Mhm.
Um, so I guess any final thoughts on our rosters here, Aiden, on just the added depth that we've heard a lot about over these last 2 weeks, and now that we've put it on paper, you really do kind of see it what the coaches are talking about. And that was kind of our whole idea behind doing this for you guys is just to really, it's one thing for us to come out here and say, hey, there's a lot of depth on this roster, and then go position by position. We just thought this was a little bit more fun way to do it. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Any final thoughts, Aiden?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of guys that aren't on the list that aren't on either of our lists that will have a chance to play and could emerge as some big time players this season. I know that safeties, obviously outside of Jaden Mangum and Malik Spencer are a little bit unknown. I think the cornerbacks, just in general, even including Charles Brantley, I think, you know, is kind of unknown. That's a very young group that, Jim Salgado is the new corners coach. So everyone has a clean slate. So figuring that out and just kind of how that back end of the defense can complement, a really, loaded front end. That front seven is, it seems pretty loaded. I think you look at both of the teams we drafted. We have 12 guys up front and with
Right.
our front four and then two linebackers. I think any of those 12 guys could start and
Yeah.
be quality players on not just of like a 5-7 team, but I think any of those 12 guys could be key contributors to a team that makes a bowl game, that makes a run for 7-8 wins. So I think that's really important to look at. I know you asked me earlier about the defense. I think that's a really important key. And then just offensively, yeah, finding that rotation is just going to be big. And then, answering those questions at the quarterback, the running back, and kind of tight end, and who's going to be the receivers outside of Trey Mosley, because there's a lot of options, and I think that's the big thing, is just having options.
Yeah, well said. And we're just excited to get to it this year. I feel like summer went really quickly until we got to
It
August. I don't know
did.
how you felt, Aiden. I know you've been busy with coaching and two-a-days and things like that, and so maybe that's kept you busy. But like to me, August is just dragging, and I can't wait until September 1st gets here. We get to be back at Spartan Stadium in the press box, and then even the week before, week zero, and the games aren't great, but it's still college football, and I'm looking forward to it. So just I keep checking the calendar, keep checking the countdown, how many days are left, and it's just not going quick enough. And I can't wait to get there. Just a couple house cleaning things here, and then we'll get out of here. I should have mentioned this last time we were live, but obviously we started this podcast, our YouTube channel, just I think at the maybe beginning of April or mid-April or something like that, and it takes a while to get some traction. My hope was that we'd get just 200 subscribers by the start of the season, and we're up at 243 subscribers, which is not a lot, but I'm excited about that. It's really since media days, since Big Ten media days, we've added a lot of subscribers. I'm excited about that. So the next goal is to maybe 275 by kickoff. Like that would be kind of cool to get up to that point. As always, thank you guys for sticking it out with us. Keys to Wisdom, Drew Kurtz, Kyle Cruz. I think there may be a couple other people but you guys were around for a long time. We appreciate the love and support, all the comments. Just couldn't ask for better support from you guys. As always, spread us around. Spread around our YouTube channel, Spartan Nation Podcast. Tell your Michigan State friends and buddies about us. Follow us on Twitter, and also head over to Facebook and follow the Spartan Nation page over there. Appreciate you guys tuning in with us, and we'll see you next time.